the political dimension, for instance, is that there's now greater expectations, or there will be greater expectations on LGUs for the direct provision of services for healthcare and even social protection. And for this reason, we have seen that many LGUs have become even stricter in imposing ECQs because they realize that they are really the frontliners, that even though it's the national government that has the resources, it's really the LGUs that are the frontliners, so to speak. They will be the boots on the ground. In terms of the economic dimension, on the fiscal side, we expect a spike in the fiscal deficit, especially this year, but we think it will persist until next year. Financial, there's tightening in the liquidity as balance sheets of households and firms deteriorate. In the real sector, on the demand side, there will be higher demand for health boosting goods, foods, products, and services, and then lower demand for non-essentials, including travel and tourism. On the supply side, real sector, we think that there will be a reconfiguration of production processes towards greater automation and digitalization of systems, repurposing of product offering towards health-promoting goods and services, and of course, the observation of strict hygiene and sanitation protocols. The external sector, we already know this. There's a weakening of exports, global supply chain disruptions, and of course, a weakening of global demand itself. Oh, at the same time, there will be a higher demand for health services and even healthcare workers. Social dimension, there will have to be a redesign of social gatherings, including spaces. That's why we will have many more of this virtual meetings. Worsening of social indicators like poverty, unemployment, underemployment. Technology, there will be higher demand for technology, internet and gadgets, and also technology to prolong the shelf life of food. Higher demand for information systems, of course, need for cybersecurity, consumer protection under a digital economy. Environment, right now, we are experiencing a cleaner environment while under ECQ. But we think that this will worsen once the ECQ is lifted because of the lower load factor in transport systems, and therefore you will need to increase the number of vehicles out there. On the other hand, there is now greater emphasis on the relationship between the environmental quality and public health. Legal, there's now there's really a greater need. We're always at battle, balancing between data privacy and public health issues, freedom of mobility versus public health. So far, we've been doing so very well on this side. And these are just the details of all those changes in the demand, which ones will increase and decrease. Let me now proceed to the recommended strategies. What we have done actually this past weeks is to disseminate this virtually across all government agencies because we wanted to help the government agencies to reprioritize their budget for this year and also for 2021, because we want the NEP 2021 to already reflect the recommended strategies in order to transition to the new normal. Now, what we will be doing in a more structured manner is to update the PDP in order to integrate these new normal features as part of the strategies of the PDP. And so this will guide the work programs of government agencies for 2021 and also for 2022. So for those who are familiar with the PDP, you would see that this is still almost the same structure, almost the same framework that we are using. But now we are actually focusing in terms of the desired outcome to having a healthy and resilient Philippines. So this is also in response to the clamor of our kababayans na ito talaga yung foremost in their minds. Maging resilient tayo. We come out of this better and stronger. So again, you have the three pillars: malasakit, pagbabago, patuloy na pag-unlad. sa malasakit pillar, we want to zero in on really building a high trust society. It's actually very difficult trying to get 108 million Filipinos to sacrifice some of our freedoms. But we think that one reason why we are able to do that is because we have this the value system natin on bayanihan, and so we want to promote this all the more, and we want that government will be responsive. We want also that technology-enabled governance. Pagdating sa pagbabago, it's now about transforming towards greater equity and resiliency. So actually, we have weaved in yung mga digital and technological solutions in all the aspects of the PDP, because that's also how we will come out of this more resilient. So just to give you the again the salient features, this will be the banner programs in this resiliency plan. Health systems improvement, of course, will be first and foremost priority. Next is the food security. Next is the enhanced BBB, and Sec Carl already mentioned what will be our criteria for coming up with this enhanced BBB program. The digital government, and of course the digital economy, and then the Balik Probinsya. So this will be weaved into the strategies of government going forward, actually over the short to medium term, so that we are able to come out of this with a workforce that is agile, with a business sector that is more resilient, and with a population that is much healthier. So, and I just have here a list of the priority strategies to improve the resiliency of labor. And we have placed here as the first one, which is about retooling the labor force so that they become more employable as we transition to a digital economy. Having better guidelines on what is this alternative working arrangements, again with respect to the hazard pay, and then improve the social protection programs that we have. With respect to the proposed legislative action, I think I would want to highlight here the number 4, which is about improving our employment insurance system, our unemployment insurance system. We do have a current law, but we think that that can be improved all the more. First, by creating a special fund. It can actually be an insurance savings account, and then having stronger tie-up with active labor market facilitation programs, just like in other countries that already have this unemployment insurance program. So that is my last slide, Secretariat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusek Rose, for the presentation. Please note that the We Recover as One report may be downloaded from the NEDA website, www.neda.gov.ph. So before we proceed, please note that all participants are muted by default. Please use the raise hand function when you want to be called on and unmuted. The questions or comments sent in advance will be prioritized. We have only until 1:30 for the briefing, so please be concise and direct to the point with your questions, and limit it to 1 minute to ensure that others will have a chance to participate in the discussion. And lastly, let's be respectful at all times. So let us now take up related questions sent in advance by Bruce Rodriguez of ABS-CBN News Channel and Kai Ordinary of Business Mirror, which are on expectations, outlook, and government responses in the coming months. So Bruce Rodriguez is asking, now that we've seen more businesses shutting down after the April unemployment figure showed its highest level on record, are we expecting more job losses ahead on top of the 5 million that have already been lost, that have already lost work? And what is the government's immediate response or intervention to this? And Kai Ordinario of Business Mirror is seeking comments of NEDA on the monthly integrated survey of selected industries data, and also on the outlook for unemployment, underemployment, and inflation. So, Secretary Carl?
Thank you very much for the questions. The prospects for the economy and employment will, I think, hinge on 2 important factors. The first one is proactive policies of the government to address the needs of the people. And we have been doing that since March through Bayanihan, through the social amelioration, through the wage subsidy and so on. Now, the second factor, I think, is the cooperation of the people to maintain the minimum health standards, that they should stay home except to work or buy food, they wash hands, wear a mask. So all of these together are needed to shape the type of recovery that we want. So whether it is of whatever shape, it rests on proactive policies of the government and the cooperation of the people to meet those health standards. Now, the good news is after 2 months of ECQ, most of the country is now in GCQ. What that means is around 75% of the economy has been opened up, and we will continue to support the needs of the businesses and the people through the recovery program that we are preparing with Congress. And in terms of the outlook, what we need to understand right now is that the ECQ that we imposed for around 2 months is a deliberate and well thought out decision process that prioritizes the health and lives of the people, including your own friends and family members. Now, as we are able to take advantage of that period to improve our healthcare system with a testing capacity of 30,000 and significant reduction of the case doubling time and the critical care utilization rate, I think the prospects are favorable. But again, that depends on how fast we can proactively implement the recovery program and also the cooperation of the people in maintaining the minimum health standards.
Okay. Thank you, Secretary. Does Sky or Bruce have any follow-up questions? If none, we have the next question is from Ted Cordero of GMA News. As the country moved to relax the strict lockdown measures beginning June 1, are we now seeing a brighter picture that the economy will recover in the third and fourth quarter, and previous estimates of contraction could be averted, that we won't be seeing a negative GDP for the whole 2020?
First of all, we made the decision on the ECQ, the modified ECQ, and now GCQ, on a very rigorous decision framework where we invited 5 modelers to present their epidemiological results to determine whether we have actually reduced the case doubling time and maximize the capacity of our critical health or critical care units. And the answer to that is yes, we have significantly improved. That is why we are in the GCQ area. Our projection for the full year is still -2 to -3.4. Now, we are reviewing that regularly. In fact, weekly in this past few months to determine whether there is scope for revision of the projection. But so far, given the results that we have seen, it seems like the second quarter will still be hit hard, and we can expect the gradual recovery to begin in the third and the fourth quarter so that we achieve as low a damage as possible for the full year. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. This one is from Prince Magtulis of Philippine Star. The Bayanihan to Recover as One bill has more spending provisions than the current one. How does the government plan to spend on these provisions like cash aid to teachers and students, as well as OFWs, given that there is no supplemental budget allowed? Senators rejected a provision that would have allowed the establishment of a holding company within DBP, Land Bank, to purchase equities on troubled private firms. What is the contingency on this? Will DBP, Land Bank still be allowed to infuse direct equity?
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, we have been working with Congress daily since the early May until the close of Congress yesterday, or today rather, to develop as best as we can a recovery program that is very adaptive and will address the concerns. That is why we have been doing the survey. So we have done a survey in April. We listened to the people. More than, I think, close to 300,000 consumers responded. 44,000 firms responded, mostly micro, small, and medium enterprises, and more than 6,000 farmers responded. And the results we took very seriously in designing PH Progreso, including the spending programs under Bayanihan 2 and the tax incentives under the CREATE. So there has been significant progress so far. The House has passed its version. The Senate is at the second reading. We are currently reviewing the second reading bill of the Senate, and we shall be sharing with them some of the remaining questions or concerns that we have. But in general, the idea of the government, including the Congress, is now converging. We are going to use a combination of fiscal policy, monetary policy, regulatory relief to be able to provide maximum stimulus to the economy. And within the fiscal, it will be a combination of budget item, tax incentives, and also off-budget item. So those are in the works, and I would like to believe that we are in a very advanced stage. The concerns of senators, we are going to discuss with them. There are some concerns of some senators, but there are also many senators who have been very supportive of the thrust of our recovery program. So in the coming days, we will be discussing with them so that we can quickly move the recovery program crafted into legislation. Thank you.
Okay, so we now open the floor to questions from other reporters. May I call on Ralph Rivas of Rappler?
Hi po. Good afternoon. My question is about Balik Probinsya. Can you tell us more details about this, since there have been studies before criticizing that this will not be effective, and even former UP Chancellor Michael Tan saying that this has been a recycled proposal already. So what will be different this time around, and if any, what are prerequisites before we implement this? Thank you.
Well, in the first place, like the rice tarification, which have been tried again and again for 30 years, and the tax reform that has been tried again and again for 20 years, and actually succeeded in the last 3 years of this administration, the Balik Probinsya also, if I may use the same analogy, has to also undergo a learning process. So what happened before, of course, should be able to guide us on how to design the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program better. In our preparation for this very important program, which is really about giving opportunities to everyone, rebalancing regional growth, and addressing the congestion in Metro Manila and other large cities, which can no longer afford to exist as it is because of the need for social distancing and COVID. All these are being used to develop a more sustainable, highly prioritized, and adaptive program so that it may be successful this time. So that is really the thinking, how we can learn from previous mistakes or experiences to do better. And that will continue to be one of the important thrusts of the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. Thank you.
Sir, quick follow-up lang po. So what are the prerequisites again before we implement this?
If I understand the question correctly, the international experience on economic geography or balanced regional development rests on, I think, two important fundamentals. The first is access to basic services in the provinces so that people have a reason to stay. I'm talking about health, education, social protection, housing, water, and sanitation. Those are the basic essentials. The second is to improve connectivity. By that, I mean both physical and telecommunication infrastructure to connect the provinces to the growth areas, to the hubs, to the global growth areas so that there is an opportunity for goods and services and talents and even labor to flow where they are most needed, where the price is most competitive, where the services are most needed. So I think these are the two fundamentals that will drive and sustain any effort to improve the prospects of Balik Probinsya. And that is exactly the thrust of this program. By doing that, then we can attract the right types of industries based on comparative advantage, prepare the LGUs and give them the help them achieve the enabling environment so that the investment will come. So those are the priorities or the fundamentals under this program.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, Carl, if I may add.
Yes, please, Yusek Rose, anytime.
Yes, yes. I just would like to add to the discussion that actually, if you will recall, in the chapter 3 of the Philippine Development Plan, we talked about the national spatial strategy. So the principles that Sec Carl actually mentioned are in those national spatial strategy, where we talked of three things. One is you improve the efficiency of the urban center, and by this we really mean that looking at all the cities that we have, because there's already agglomeration economies there. The problem is they have become very, very inefficient, and it's really because of congestion. And that's why one of the major recommendations there was really to decongest Metro Manila. The second component there is really about connectivity, and it's we actually have a very, very a thick document also on this national spatial strategy, where we have identified metropolitan centers, regional centers, and then what we call sub-regional centers. And it's really about making sure that there is this network of connectivity, so that you connect all these centers to the settlements and to the production areas. The third aspect of that national spatial strategy is about reducing the vulnerabilities, and we talked about having redundancy with respect to the network of connectivity, and we also talked about, again, addressing the very the sources of vulnerability of a certain place. I think what this Balik Probinsya program is doing is really to provide an extra impetus for this national spatial strategy to finally become realized. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. We have two questions next. Asia Pacific Daily's Melo Acuna, and then followed by Bloomberg, Andrew Calonzo. Melo Acuna, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. Good afternoon. Yes. Has NEDA come up with recommendations for the tourism, aviation, and land transport sectors, because they're also affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you.
Well, NEDA, together with the economic team, are together in recommending to the Congress, as they prepare the Bayanihan 2, to be as targeted and to prioritize as much as possible the very limited resources that we have to help the priority sectors. And in our surveys that we conducted, these are the sectors that actually came out as the most hard hit. And in the program, they will indeed be the priority to avail of various support, both targeted and time-bound support, such as access to loans with lower interest rates backed by credit guarantees, and cash for work program, wage subsidies, and other regulatory relief measures, so that they can be able to adjust. So those are the priorities, or the way we would like to help these sectors. Thank you.
Yes. Would you have specific timelines for that?
Which one? The program? Well, as soon as the Congress pass the law, they can be implemented the soonest, because our recovery program is covering the period of July to December after the Bayanihan 1 expires. And the second part of our support will be coursed through the preparation of the 2021 budget, which is starting today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Andrea Colonzo from Bloomberg.
Hi, good afternoon to
Good
Secretary
afternoon.
Chua. Sir, you mentioned in your opening speech a price tag of 847 billion for the recovery program, if I'm not mistaken. So if you could just give a breakdown of which one is for the monetary, which is one is for fiscal and for regulatory measures.
Thank you very much. So, in previous presentation, I have indeed shown the breakdown. What we are proposing to Congress is to maximize the impact of our various policy tools. So, of that amount, 130 billion is what we propose as spending programs that will be part of the expenditure and therefore will affect the deficit, and that will give us a maximum of 9% deficit, which will put us at the median of our comparator countries or the same countries of similar credit rating status. Of that total amount, around 43 billion will come from the across-the-board tax incentives with the lowering of the corporate income tax and the provision of other incentives under the CREATE or the tax incentives for COVID bill. So the total of the fiscal measure is 173 billion. The balance of that will come from the monetary off budget and the regulatory relief. And let me explain why that is of that magnitude. If we provide, for instance, 10 billion peso worth of capital or subsidy, capital infusion, for instance, to Land Bank can leverage that up to 8.5 times. So what that means is that can provide lending support at low interest rate at the amount of 85 billion pesos. So yung 10 billion, that is the seed money or the capital infusion or the equity to Land Bank can turn that into 85 billion to serve more clients. Now, we prefer it that way because number one, if we give the money directly as a subsidy or a loan, it will just be 10 billion because the government is not a bank. But if we course it through the banking system, that can be leveraged 8.5 times. In the same way, if we give a credit guarantee of 10 billion, for instance, the field guarantee can leverage that up to 20 times. So the amount that can be covered as credit guarantee is not only 10 billion, but 200 billion. And that will allow us to reach as many clients as possible. So that is why the total amount, 173, is the contribution of the fiscal policy, and the balance is the contribution of the non-fiscal policy, which has a better reach and better way of targeting those in need. And that is how the amount is derived.
Sir, just
Thank you.
two short follow-up questions. So how does the stimulus package passed by the House, I think yesterday, factor into all of your plans? Because their plan is 1.3 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a huge gap there. And then my second question is, what's your target for the passage of this, considering that the Bayanihan 2 Act is expiring, I think, June or July?
Well, we are in discussion with the congressmen that such an amount would not be fundable because any supplemental budget or standby appropriation would require new revenue sources, and that is very limited. And financing or borrowing is not a revenue source. So with that, they are beginning to understand, and they will have to meet in the BICAM to address those concerns. In terms of the timing, we are reviewing both bills from the House and the Senate, and we will furnish them with our comments, and also the Office of the President, and we will wait for guidance from the legislator and the Office of the President on the timeline. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question, another question from media, and then the next would be from Facebook. First, Mikhail Flores from AFP News.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon, Secretary Carl.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, just related to the Balik Probinsya program. I was wondering, I was wondering why would we implement a program that repatriates our countrymen back to the countryside in the middle of a pandemic, and there's that risk of introducing the virus to an area that has not previously reported cases, and considering that Metro Manila is the current epicenter of the outbreak.
Well, first of all, the situation of many of our fellow Metro Manilans are not adequate to maintain the minimum health standards, as many of them live in a house which is just one room, and there are five of them, and this is a trade-off that we have to squarely face. Would they be better off taken care of and secured from the virus here or in the provinces? And the answer is we have to weigh the trade-off, and we have to balance all these. And this is being done in a very careful and calibrated manner. We are not sending by the 100,000 or millions. These are being sent in a very prepared and managed approach. And I think this is the direction that we are going to continue to balance the need for the LGUs in the provinces to be as COVID-free as possible, but at the same time, give the opportunity to our fellow Metro Manilans who do not have the same luxury as we have to maintain, for instance, the social distancing. Thank you.
Okay, just a very quick follow-up, Secretary Carl. Where are we at in terms of, because we're waiting for the midterm update of the PDP, and Yusek Rose mentioned about the national spatial strategy, and I think that addresses, the strategy of bringing back our countrymen to the provinces. So have we, at this point, assessed that our urban centers outside Manila are able to absorb these fellow Metro Manilans that are due to return to the provinces? Can you just give us a flavor of where are we at in terms of the midterm update, specifically to the NSS?
Let me request Yusek Rose to first answer, then I can pitch in. Thank you.
Yeah, so with respect, if I understand the question correctly, in terms of the timeline, we hope to finish with the resiliency plan by end or third week of July. We're actually already working on it now. With respect to trying to, what do you say, evaluate the readiness of urban the other urban centers. Actually, what really needs to be done is for many of these receiving LGUs to really update their CLUP, their local development plans. So actually, this is still a phased approach now. It's not something that we can really force on them. So they have to be able to realize the advantages of having more of our. I think especially if these are returning OFWs, these are skilled workers. So all this we are actually we are looking at, especially even for the employment placement. We want yung protocols by which they are able to update right away their employment, their peso systems, information systems, so that again mabilis lang sana yung transition. There are many things, as you can imagine, many things that needs to happen, but I think the direction is there. We want a balanced development, and we also want to, like I said, reduce the inefficiencies in the current mga queen cities. So dapat i-address natin yung inefficiencies na to, and really the answer is to have more of the decongestion of the cities we have now, and but that also means na maganda nga mangyari, kasi you need to make the other cities and even the other provinces more attractive, actually, so that they can have they can also approximate yung the development in the other cities.
Okay. Thank you, Secretary Carl. Thank you, Yusek Rose.
Thank you. We can proceed. Yeah, we can entertain a
Yeah,
few more
it's now,
questions.
just time check, it's now 1:34. We have two more questions. One is from social media, Facebook. We're live on Facebook, by the way. It's from Jude Esguerra. Can the NEDA commit to a target for reducing the number of unemployed, the number of underemployed, and the number of discouraged workers by December 2020 and then by December 2021?
Yusek Rose, would you like to start?
Yes, actually, we're looking at the numbers now. Not really about committing, but trying very hard to reach the target. Of course, this is a setback. This year, parang all over the world, it's really a setback. But we are coming up with concrete measures on how to, at the very least, get back hopefully 5 million. No? Kasi we lost actually 7.9 million minus 3, so 5 million ang nawala ng trabaho. So hopefully maibalik kahit man lang, well, unti-unti. But we are actually very hopeful about, especially about the fourth quarter. Third quarter, meron na kasing mga pronouncements, especially other LGUs, that they are not too keen yet on opening up. And we fully understand, again, as with the rest of us, ang priority nila is still health. Priority nila is saving lives. So that is we respect that. But for all the others, as already mentioned, meron tayong mga short-term job employment opportunities out there. And I think just as soon as even tong global supply chains, kapag maayos na yung global value chains, we really think that there's a lot of opportunities, especially for our electronic sector.
I just would like to add, we have a program for the year, and that is based on the available data and the developments in the country in the fight against the virus and in the global environment. And we continue to update that so that we can be as realistic as possible. And that will continue to be the case because this year is the most uncertain, I guess, of all the years ever since we have been alive. Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Prince Magtulis of Philstar, and then Ben De Vera. Prince Magtulis,
Hi,
please.
sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just a question. Will the economic managers request the President Duterte to call for a special session of Congress to pass the bills that you have, the Create Bill and the Bayanihan Bill? Because they adjourned already today. Thank you.
Thank you. We are reviewing the bills that have been passed on second or third reading. We are preparing the comments, and we are in discussion with the leaders of Congress and the Office of the President, and we will seek guidance from them on whether there will be a special session or not.
Ben De Vera, please.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, has NEDA does NEDA have any projection or estimate of the impact of the confluence of higher unemployment as of April, the projected recession for this year, well, stable inflation, and of course, the offsetting measures introduced by the government, the doleouts, the wage subsidies, to the overall poverty picture? Shall we can we keep the 16.7% yesterday revised by the PSA as of 2018 by this year, or would it be lower, or will we slide back into maybe 20% level? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very good, challenging question. First of all, we set a target in 2016 to bring down the poverty rate from the revised 23% to around 17%. Lifting 6 million Filipinos out of poverty by 2022. Fortunately, given the efforts of everyone and the reforms put in place, we were able to achieve that not in 2022 but in 2018, when the poverty estimate reached slightly below 17%, which means 6 million Filipinos were lifted out of poverty 4 years in advance. And so this is the starting point. Now, given the virus and the pandemic, this is of course expected to go up. But there are many indications that this is only temporary, and we have a strong chance to still hit the targets that NEDA has set forth, the new targets. No, I think that is around 11%, if I'm not mistaken. For the following reasons: number one, most of the country is now in GCQ or the modified GCQ, or are actually no longer in quarantine. And in fact, most of the poor are in the rural areas, which are hardly affected. Our survey of farmers revealed that the far majority continue to plant. And in fact, they are able to sell because the markets have been active, the supply chain not disrupted, and inflation is very low. So there is no supply problem. There is also no over demand. So I think that is a good sign. The second, I think, is an indication from the labor force survey that shows that the underemployment rate increased, but is not significantly worse because from 13% it increased to 18%. So what that means here is that while there is a need for many people to want to work more, to earn more, that need is relatively low because precisely we have been providing all types of subsidies, the SAP, the wage subsidy, and so on. So I think the combination of all these factors suggests that there might be a temporary deterioration of poverty, but I think given the policies in place, we are on track to still further improve our poverty numbers. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can entertain a question from Facebook, and then maybe another question
Sure,
after this.
sure.
So, from Joshua Mata, looking at LFS results, 68% of the labor force is underutilized, unemployed, underemployed, and displaced, even if employed. Would 130 billion be enough to address this staggering problem?
In the first place, there are also many people studying. We have a very young population. The median age, I understand, is 22, meaning if you are 23 years old, you are already in the oldest 50%. So that is one consideration. Number two, as I mentioned, let us not just be focusing on one tool, which is the budget. There are so many other tools that can be used to help the people. And the survey that we conducted and that we listened to precisely said that the number one request is deferment of taxes, rentals, and loans. We did that in Bayanihan 1. The second request is the tax incentives or discounts, that is why we have the CREATE bill. And finally, we would not like to reach to just a few thousands. We would like to reach to as many as we can, by the hundreds of thousands or the millions. And the best way to do that is to leverage on the strength of our banking system to be able to reach out to all types of borrowers, whether the largest ones or the microfinance, in need of microfinance. So that is, I think, the better approach to support the people. Use all our tools in the arsenal, both the fiscal and the monetary, add the regulatory relief, ask the big firms to contribute so that we can have the most or the maximum impact. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I may add, Sec.
Yes,
Carl,
please. Yes,
I think
anytime.
we should not lose sight of the fact that this loss in employment is really temporary, and as mentioned earlier, it's really our resolve to prioritize lives and the health of Filipinos, families and friends. No, so. Actually, I think the number one strategy which government is doing is really to improve the capacity of our healthcare system to address this problem. So is really important that we don't lose sight of that. I think the best strategy is really to bring back that level of confidence, and that is really through enhancing the healthcare system. As you know, for instance, and we have already increased our testing capacity very significantly. And again, if you look at the numbers, especially in terms of the number of deaths, it really is a small, of course. It's any death is also, of course, very bad, no, pero it shows you how much we have improved in terms of in terms of this health capacity. So ang especially sa testing natin, as already reported by si Sec Vince na nasa 42,000 a day na tayo na testing. So in terms of also yung kinocompute ng mga epidemiologists na R naught, before we went into this ECQ, our R naught, or yung reproduction rate of this virus, is actually something like 3.2, 3.4. Ibig sabihin, one person is able to infect more than 3 more. So ganun ka exponential yung yung increase na yon. Ngayon we are down to a 1.2 and going down even further. So we actually have already achieved great lengths to this one. Largely the leadership of our president, of the IATF, of all yung mga leaders natin in government, and of course yung sacrifice din ng nasa mga health sector workers natin. So dapat din tuloy-tuloy lang yung natin, yung cooperation natin, kasi it also depends on us, no, how well we are able to protect ourselves. So I think ang pinakaunang mangyari dito is bumalik yung kumpiyansa, and for this mga businesses na nagsara, kasi nagsara sila kasi sinabihan natin sila magsara eh. So ngayon, balik lang sila magbukas, but make sure that the minimum health standards are observed, so that we don't see any worsening. And so tuloy-tuloy lang tong ating recovery. Thank you.
Okay. I think we need to wrap up. The secretary has another meeting. So one final call from media, if there is any. If none, so maybe ask Secretary Carl if you have any final words for the media briefing, for the media and the online viewers.
Well, instead of a final word, if there are any final burning questions, I can answer. That would be my final word, the answer to that burning question.
Anyone from media? Oh, sorry. Ben De Vera, please.
Hi, sir. So just to reiterate or to clarify, the economic team will not allow the deficit to breach 9% this year. If Congress still pushes through with the trillions of pesos of stimulus bills that they wanted to pass, what can you do about it? Thank you.
Well, we are in the most uncertain times, and the 9% deficit is where we will be at the median of our comparator countries in ASEAN, East Asia, emerging markets, and those with similar credit rating. And these things are changing. So if we find ourselves in the near future, a few months later, that the median has adjusted, then that will provide us more room to increase the stimulus. But for now, we have to be very mindful of the situation wherein we have to balance the need to respond to the people and to maintain our fiscal position, which will allow us really, not because we want the credit rating, but allow us to respond even more in case there are future shocks or a second wave, because nothing is certain. So we will take it month on month, and adjust accordingly. But for now, we think that the best way to help the economy is a combination of fiscal support and monetary support. Thank you. So with that, let me end by inviting everyone to look at our reform as a package. Like any reform, we are not able to address everything with just the budget. We have to look at how our tax system can help the people, how regulatory relief can help the people, and how we can leverage on our very strong financial sector to help even more people. And I think that is exactly how we want this recovery program to be, because the decisions we make today not only will have consequence on the people today, but also your children and grandchildren. Because if we have to borrow more, then we will have to ask them to pay for the responsibilities we don't want to face today. So everything will have to be taken in this perspective. That first, nothing is free from heaven, so we will have to prioritize. And second, we have to weigh the trade-offs of everything so that we arrive at a decision that is very objective, that is going to respond to where the needs are, and to channel resources to those that will be the most affected. So with that, thank you very much. We hope to have this meeting with the press as often as possible. Thank you and take care.
Thank you, Secretary Chua and Yusek Rosemary Idilion. That concludes our hashtag Ask NEDA Media briefing for this month. We would like to thank all our friends from the media, colleagues, and our online viewers. Thank you for joining us.